Fraud is evolving, and it's evolving fast. From deepfakes and synthetic identities to AI and organized fraud rings, the tools of deception are coming at us faster and are more convincing than ever. It's one of the most urgent and complex questions facing society today, let alone businesses. In a world where seeing is no longer believing, how do we know what's real? Well, the truth is, businesses trust their customers and customers trust their businesses every day, but the costs are getting higher. Today, we're going to talk about how fraudsters are upping their game and how businesses must respond to rebuild trust across the customer journey. To help us unpack all of this, I'm pleased to welcome a special guest, Shira Rubinoff. Shira is a recognized cybersecurity expert, is a cybersecurity executive, AI advisor, global keynote speaker, analyst, author, influencer, and the CEO of Cybersphere Group. Shira, thanks so much for joining us today.
Pleasure. Thank you.
And I want to welcome back to the podcast Simon Horswell, senior fraud specialist at Entrust and longtime expert in determining the authenticity of secure identities and documents. Simon, great to see you again.
And you, Ken. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, Simon, and thanks, Shira. Let's start by lensing out. Shira, how would you describe the current state of fraud and identity and those identity threats today?
Well, great question, Ken. And, unfortunately, we're in an age of distrust. People cannot trust what they see, what they hear. And as you mentioned earlier, we used to say, seeing is believing. I'll believe it when I hear it from a person I trust. I'll hear it and believe it when I see it come through on trusted credentials that in a place where it used to be trusted cannot just automatically be trusted anymore. Today, bad actors prey on the human, as we say, the weakest link in the chain. And that's something we have to talk about on making humans part of the solution. But today, weakest link in the chain, there's always a human at the beginning of it. There's some technology in between and a human at the other side. So we're looking to manipulate the human just across the board. What do the bad actors do? With the psychology of it, they work on the human to push levels of urgency, human emotion. I'll give you an example. Let's say somebody gets a call, let's say a senior citizen getting a call from a bank. Hi, I'm calling from Bank of America. Somebody broke into your bank. I'm calling. Oh, by the way, I just want to make sure that you feel comfortable with me. These are the last 4 digits of your social security number. This is your home address. This is your mother's maiden name, giving all sorts of trusted credentials where in the past somebody would say, well, if you have all that, I could trust you. You're calling from a number that looks like it's from Bank of America. You have enough information about me that I feel what you're saying could be true. Then level on the extra level of human emotion and urgency. Well, ma'am, we're calling because we're very worried about your account. It looks like somebody has tried to withdraw your social security and it's going to empty your account, but you're a long-time standing customer, so we have you as a special account. I just need you to verify a few extra credentials in order for us to protect you. So think about it from that. They're coming at a human who's nervous to begin with, who may be not as sophisticated, an elderly folk, and saying that they are going to trust and they need you to trust in order for them to help you so you don't get your bank accounts wiped out, etc. So these things are happening. The person on the other line, this woman saying, okay, well, if they're telling me enough, let me tell them so they could trust me. And once they trust me, I'm going to be able to now be secure and I will be okay. That happens. Things are played through. Fraudster comes in, changes credentials, wipes them clean. That happens every day of the calendar year, pretty much. I've personally gotten calls from friends, colleagues, and saying, how do I protect my parents? How do I protect my children? How do we protect across the different demographics, but also the different age groups? Because people are manipulated based on how they interact in life. And that's what the fraudsters are counting on. Whether it's children, as you see every day in the news, they play video games, or they're attacked through getting different credentials off the web, or if people friend them and they look like a friend from their school, they create these profiles. There's so many ways to manipulate a person when it comes to human emotion and the human as an identity itself. So identity is the number one place where fraudsters are trying to manipulate in order to gain access and to create havoc.
And Simon, what would you add to that?
I think Shira summed it up beautifully. It's as we move forward with technology, right? The technology we're seeing is being used as a tool by the fraudsters in the same way that we're using it as a tool to protect ourselves from the fraudsters. And as you see this escalation in the quality of the tech that we're using, the sophistication, the ability, it then comes back to the same problem. As Shira's rightly said, it's the weak link is always the same, and it's us as human beings. And a lot of that is down to our own ignorance, right? Because the awareness with much of this stuff, it's that is what the killer is, right? People are unsuspecting. They are open and vulnerable to some of these problems because they're not aware that these problems exist. We can talk about vulnerable people like the older demographic or the younger demographic, but I always say that there's a scam out there for all of us. If you haven't been hit by a scam yet, it's simply because you just haven't encountered it, or maybe you haven't realized it. But there's a scam built for everybody. They're constructed on human behavior and psychology, and engineered in such a way that they will catch you out. The scenarios that Shira's describing, they haven't changed just because the technology's changed. It's just there's a new way to get you into that situation.
Yeah. I need to add something in that Simon, as you said, is a key factor. One of the things you just said is, or you haven't realized it yet. There are so many of us going through our daily life, whether at work or our home life, our business life, whatever it may be, and you've been manipulated and you just don't know yet. They
Yeah.
have the low and slow, as they call it, where there's somebody within the organization or within your credentials that is kind of waiting, touching it, taking out $1 from a bank account, slowly seeing, are you paying attention? So exactly as you said, if you haven't been attacked yet, you either may have or it's coming. But that's a very important thing and a key thing that people need to realize. This already may have happened to you. So there are things that you need to do in order to protect yourself further. So I love that you raised that.
Yeah, well, I
Well,
mean, it used to be, sorry, Kenny, it used to
Go ahead.
be, before lockdown, I always use lockdown as a reference point because I think everything's really escalated since then. We'll probably come to that in a moment, but it used to be that you would hear of a friend or a sort of a third party connection that had experienced a scam or had got one of those text messages or had hit one of those phishing emails. And now that isn't the case. Now it's every single one of us. I don't think I've met any person in the last couple of years that hasn't had at least one phone call, at least one text message, at least one phishing email. And it's the volume of them and how frequently they're now occurring. It's touching everybody now. It's not just the odd person here and there. It's everybody.
of course. And even as you said, text message, you could be getting a text message from a recognized number that's actually not that person. That
Mm.
can happen as well. You can get from your child, you get from your spouse, from anybody. And it's like, can you please just deposit XYZ in the accounts? I'm by the bank. I need to take it out. So you see the number. That's a trusted number. Of course, I'm going to do it. So I'll just give everybody a quick helpful hint just on a small little piece that you should do immediately with your families, with your business, for anything that's highly sensitive. So this is very, very detailed and very, very complex. No, I'm just kidding. It's actually the simplest thing you can do. It's going back to the olden days. You need to have a trusted word. Something, let's say with a spouse, a partner, a child, anything, let's say something's going on in the world or something they need to connect with you. If you get a message and the person does not share a word, it could be as simple as Apple. And they say, Mom, I have to tell you something, Apple. Okay, that's my kid. I get it. You don't write it down anywhere. You do not text it to each other. You do not say it you do not put it anywhere. It's a easy, trusted word. You could have a family word. You could also have it within a business. And people are saying, wait, that's too simple. But at the end of the day, it is simple because that's what you could count on. A fraudster will not know your keyword if you don't put it anywhere. It should be not anything related to your job, anything related to your hobbies, anything that anyone could pick. It could be as a groundhog, something simple. But have those keywords with your family and your business people that might be very highly important when you need to do transactions and you're trusting on communication.
What I really hear is that there's something we talk about technology all the time, and there's something fundamental about how to fight fraud. That is sort of part of all of us. That knowledge and not being prey to that sense of urgency that you're throwing out there is so critical. Um, uh, that said, maybe can we talk about the tech a little bit and talk about that? Um, how are fraud tactics changing? Is there something different about what they're doing today versus what they've done in the past? Maybe Simon, will start with you on that one.
Yeah. So I don't think it would be fair to say that the tactics have changed, right? Because a lot of the scenarios are very, very similar. It's just employing the latest tools to make those scenarios more convincing, more sophisticated, but the underlying thread is always, it's the same story, right? It goes all the way back, there have obviously been other scams, but the easiest one to point to that everyone has as a frame of reference is the Nigerian prince, right? We all know that scam now, but you go back
Wait a
like
sec, I'm not special? I just got something from Nigeria. Wait a minute, I gotta cancel my plane ticket. I was kidding. But seriously, it's true. It's true.
Yeah. And we all know about that, but that again comes back to awareness. Everyone knows about that, so I won't get caught out when I get a message from a Nigerian prince. But what if it's a delivery company, right? So it's the same scenario. It's the same kind of like setups. It's the same, basically the same thread all the way through. The difference with the technology is it becomes more sophisticated. It becomes more convincing. And also it means that the fraudsters can scale it up. Right? The ability to scale these things up and so quickly means that you can have really light touch, light effort from the fraudster's point of view. If we look at the LLMs that have come in now and how convincing they are if you talk to a chatbot, you can use this to create a convincing scenario. You can have it on autoplay so that you're stringing someone along for a romance scam, for example, or you could take it to the other end with the stuff that we're doing with Entrust. So I can scale up the number of attacks I do when I'm trying to do customer onboarding, right? So I can scale up the number of fake accounts I try and make. Or I can use it at the same time in phishing scams to try and get as much information as possible so that I can do lots of account takeovers. The numbers get so big that the return of investment becomes that much more attractive. So the technology hasn't changed the tactics, but it's changed the scale and it's changed the sophistication.
No, very true. And it also is that much faster as well. With AI kind of in the middle of everything right now, just think of the multitude ways that we could penetrate all our different systems. But also think about if we dial back again to human emotion. People by nature, they want to connect. People by nature want to share and want to be similar. For example, whenever you're talking to somebody, let's say you're at a meeting, what's one of the first things people do? They connect. They don't just jump right into business. They talk. Oh, like, did you see the football game? Or are you a fan? Or what's your team? Or where have you gone on a vacation? Finding some commonality is what makes people let their guard down. So a lot of these attacks also are preying not only with the human side, they're understanding and learning that much quicker. The way we're able to scale across the internet and grab information about people and create these identities that are similar to the ones that we're trying to attack is so sophisticated and moves so quickly that us as humans have to take a step back and really understand where it's coming from. So by nature, we're looking to connect. Here's a person that has some similar things. Oh, they just went on the same trip that I just came back from. Hey, tell me about it. And you have these chatbots that can do that. They can connect with you. They can talk to you. They can tell you what you may want to hear. They can give you, as you mentioned, romance scams. They can make you feel good and feel like you're loved or you're somebody that people should pay attention to, or somebody who has an opportunity for a new job that maybe they've been looking for a job for a long time, and all of a sudden their dream job is coming out of nowhere. But it's not nowhere, it's targeted. And think about also where the attacks are coming from, typical phishing attacks, but also through social media. Maybe somebody created based on the profile that was able to gain across the internet, they're able to create this profile that seems like somebody you should be friends with. And they can go on, for example, us oldies on Facebook, all of a sudden a fake profile connects with a ton of all your friends, because most people just say, sure, add friend, add friend, add friend. And a lot of these are really fake profiles that are building and collecting information. And now you're the real target. So you see you have a friend request. Wow, they're friends with 50 of my friends. Oh, they live near me. Oh, they're in the same industry. Sure, let me connect. And all of a sudden you're talking to somebody who's really trying to attack you. They're gaining your trust. They're connecting. And this really permeates across everything. It could be through business. It could be on social media. It could be going against the company, but also the human touch. And a lot of these attacks also that hit companies are coming through other areas. They're not just coming through the company. They're coming through personal portals that people may not have attached to the company, but they already have that trust outside. So they negligently bring it in. So I'd call that a negligent insider attack, where it's happening, again, attacking the identity from all different spaces.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Simon.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, everything you're saying, Shira, it just rings so true. I mean, the other thing that you quite often hear when you're talking about romance scams as well is quite often I just enjoyed the fact that this person had so much time to spend on me, and that was the big kind of thing. That's the thing that makes it really difficult to break that spell. I mean, you can double that up with, using deep fake technology to make it seem like you are actually interacting with that person, that beautiful person that just decided to pick you out from all the random people on Facebook or on this dating website or that dating website. But the main thing is that person's then got the time or they've got the technology to make it seem like you are the center of their world, love bombing, finding quotes off the internet to send you so that you get a beautiful poem. But you can go onto ChatGPT, for example, get it to produce an amazing love poem in seconds. And I'm not saying anyone should do that, and that's not a way to run a relationship, but it's what's available now.
Well, Simon, also to your point there, think about it also from in an organization. You have somebody who's low down in the organization who's really trying to climb the ladder and trying to find any way to get have their profile raised. And all of a sudden, they're getting tagged by somebody they think is high up in the company, or it looks like they're high up in a company, that have noticed their good work. They've noticed their dedication. They've noticed what they're doing within the company to help elevate it and move it forward. And they're really paying attention to them. But it's not anyone in the company. It just looks like it. Can you imagine how that manifests itself across the organization in terms of an attack? The trust, of course, is already there. They're not looking to find the trust. This executive is paying attention to me. Wow, maybe I'll get a promotion. Wait, what do they need? Let me take care of it right away. Let me put it in front of everything else I have to do because this is my ticket to get to the next stage within this company. So in their mind, they're thinking, I am fully dedicated to this company. Cyber culture, obviously it's there because I'm talking to somebody within the company on a closed circuit, whatever it might be. The trust has to be earned in a place where it is trusted for real. Identity needs to be validated and ensured in a way that it can be broken down and understand where it's coming from. The blind trust and the blind understanding can no longer exist based on the small types of identities that we were given before in order to create that trust.
Yeah, and is there and clearly technology is helping the bad guys do this and scale up. Is there something that is there a way that technology can help us be smarter or stop some of this stuff before it gets to us?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we all have to be smarter. So like we said at the top, it's all about education and awareness, but that doesn't mean you can't use technology to start identifying patterns in behavior that could signal someone early on as being a fraudster or that your transaction is incorrect. I mean, if we're talking about some of the scenarios that Shira's talking about there, well, yeah, we've got to make sure that we've got decent security in place across our entire company. But that's only as good as all of the individuals that work there making sure they're up to date on the policies and that everyone follows it. And that's not just at the ground level, but that's all the way up to the very top. And what you don't want is obviously everyone else has done their security training and then their CEO ignores it all and jeopardizes the entire company. Right. But you can have lots of technological advances that you put in place. So monitoring like biometric behavior for one. You can look at things like keystrokes. You can try and analyze the device that you're communicating with as well to try and ensure that it isn't rooted, that it is the device it says it is. There are many different aspects that you can bring in there. So yes, but it is eventually going to boil down to the weakest link. You can shore up those walls, but if there's one weak point, that's where the fraudster is going to go.
That is so true. And it's literally finding that one opening. It doesn't have to be many. And a lot of organizations say, well, we're going to look at the things that are the biggest pain points in the company to focus on. Everything else will follow. And, when I talk about cyber hygiene within an organization, training across, the organizations, they say, okay, we're going to focus on our main employees. I'm like, no, you got to focus from the board all the way down to your intern. Every person who has a touch point within the organization can be that weakest link. And let's throw a few numbers out at you. So in 2025, physical counterfeits accounted for 47% of fraud attempts, and digital forgeries only made up 35%. And that has shifted because the rise in digital methods is now fueled by the accessibility and scalability of modern editing tools, which make it cheaper and faster and easier for the bad guys to manipulate the images, to replicate templates and mass produce convincing forgeries. So think about the scalability of it and how it's moving so quickly. So now it's not just physical. Now we're in the digital world. Everything is pretty much digital. You could walk around without anything. Pull out your phone. Here, let me in on this. Click that. Do this. Oh, yeah, I can authenticate myself here. Forget about man-in-the-middle attacks, third-party breaches. There's all these things that are happening across demographics. You have to look at everything. So companies say, what do we do? There's just so many openings. It's really understanding the organization as a whole and who the makeup of your employees are. How do they communicate? What are your rules within the organization? And how do you actually manage that? Who is overseeing it? And how can you make everybody accountable so you don't have that single one, and it's never single or one, but let's just say you're perfect, but you have that one entree point. That's all somebody needs, one. And then think of it like a spider explodes. You have one entree point, now it's going everywhere within the organization. You just opened yourself up for a lot of pain.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember as well, like we can talk about the technology, and obviously Entrust, we're all about technology. So it's, it's very easy to go into that trap and just purely look at the latest solutions and the latest problems. But the thing is, again, fraud, I often describe fraud as being like water. It's always going to find the way in, right? That's what it will do. It will flow. It will find where the weakest point is, where the entry point is. You need total coverage. If you focus all of your attentions on building high-tech solutions and you neglect the really simple stuff, we can talk about the humans being the really simple stuff, but Shira quoted some of the stats from this year's fraud report in terms of 47% physical counterfeits. So that's still relying on the physical world. Last year, we saw the massive swing where it was about 52% digital fraud and I think about 32% physical counterfeits. So you can still see there is that place where if you focus too much in one area, then fraud will find a way. It will start going, if you're going high tech, let's go low tech. If you're going to build all your defenses around injection attacks and deep fakes, then we're going to start going back to using masks. We'll find more ingenious ways to use masks. Maybe we'll start using those kind of, I don't know if you've seen these, but kind of like they're like made out of nylon, sort of fabric mask that you could put on top with a face printed on it.
It's
very,
wild.
very deceptive. Very
It can
deceptive.
make a male look female, a female look male with nothing. I just saw one of those. It's astounding. Yeah.
Do we have those in our fraud lab now?
I couldn't possibly tell you that, Ken. I couldn't possibly tell you that. All I will say is they are a lot of fun, but they are also very dangerous. But this just shows you how sort of people will keep innovating, but they'll go for the low key, the low tech solution if they have to. So you can't just focus on one area. You have to have coverage across the board. You need to make sure you're addressing all of the different areas.
Are there some, you talked about how fraud sort of flows by water, flows like water, to the place where there's an opening. Are we starting to see some industries or, different types of transactions at in particular danger? As we look at, for example, the fraud we see, fraud attempts we see on our systems.
I think it depends on what industry you're in, and fraud always goes where the money is. So if you're in an industry where everything is front loaded, so it's all about the sign up bonus, the reward, the incentive to get you to join up, that's going to be where all your fraud is going to take place, or the majority of your fraud is going to take place. However, if there's more value for the later life cycle, like day 2, day 3, where that person's already built up credentials, built up some kind of asset, something that's valuable, that's where the fraud's going to take place. So you've got like crypto, you've got vehicle hire. These are going to be the ones that are going to be focused mainly on the account onboarding. But then you start looking at... Sorry?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I was add to that point that you made is a very important point. They're going to focus on, but that doesn't mean the other areas are safe. They're going to go across all of them at the same time. So one may look at their different assets and the different areas and say, ooh, I see an attack coming from here. That's clear as day. But that could also think about in a type of a human manipulation form. distraction over here, and you think it's something small when really we're going in over here, and that's where the real attack is. So we're going to keep you
Yeah.
busy. Almost, we could akin that to a bot-to-bot attack. When you have, AI bots where they're just doing manual work within the organizations, and they could be doing things just to keeping them busy, following the special reports. I'm not talking about anything sophisticated here, but another bot attack would be just to keep it busy. So it's not focusing on other things. So there's lots of different ways to manipulate it to have the distractions. And that could be whether it's technology based, because we're learning. Again, we're still in the infancy of AI. As advanced as we are, we still have lots of issues with hallucinations and all these things that are happening across the AI world, but also the human factors piece. We're going to distract you here to manipulate you here. We're going to do this to get your attention not as sharp. Yeah, you might be kind of focused everywhere, but you're keeping your eye right there because that's where it looks like it's the worst.
Well, it's funny you're talking about this, and I'm thinking back to the books I read as a kid, like Asimov's I, Robot, where the main character is a robo-psychologist that's literally trying to figure out how to interact with an AI, essentially. Uh, and it seems like that's a skill that's almost needed these days, when we're thinking about stopping AI manipulation and things like that.
Well, I sometimes, I tell folks that one of the main things they need to do is to be the CEO of themselves. What does that mean? When you're part of an organization, there's certain rule sets, certain things that you need to do to be within guidance of the organization, whether it being to keep your job, whether it being to stay safe, cyber culture, cyber hygiene, all these works and things that you do within organization training, etc. What about your own self? You need to look at yourself as I am the CEO of myself. What does that mean to me? I need to keep my credentials safe. How do I do that? How do I not get manipulated into bringing in problems, again, as a pain point into an organization? Because I can be a walking attack and not even know it. I can have something infiltrate my personal systems, and I'm bringing my device into work. I'm plugging something into the network, even though rules say not to, but pretty much everyone does it in some way, fashion, or another, or some sort of smart something that gets plugged in. And we've seen plenty of attacks across those. So think of yourself, you can walk into an organization and you could be the attacker. You could be the one manipulating your entire organization and be a negligent insider threat without any knowledge of it, with all the training that has come because you're acting a certain way at work. But your home life or your own personal way that you're handling yourself across media or the internet, you're careful, but you don't have those, certain, let's say, called spidey senses up where everything is, you're thinking security all the time. So at work, you might be perfect and hitting everything the organization does. And that you got the cyber awareness, the cyber culture, the training, you're getting marks, you're getting rewarded, your bosses love you. And here you go, walk into the organization one day and you create havoc without knowledge. So you need to also create that system across your entire life, not only to protect yourself, to protect your work, but to bring it across the whole demographics as a human, to be part of the solution and not the weakest link.
So let's talk about that a little more. And of course, your background, as if you couldn't tell, your background initially was in human psychology, um, and I think your point is kind of that we are kind of wired to trust
Yes.
each other. We're social beings. Um, uh, so is there? I mean, I think that COO analogy is a really good one, in terms of how we get ourselves not to be so trusting? How do we participate in our own defense? Is there um is there some additional device, or is there some additional ways that we as humans should think about it? Or maybe taking it out broadly, is there a way organizations should think about that, as they design systems, in order to protect themselves and their customers better?
Well, that's an excellent question because a lot of organizations, they kind of follow the standard. This is what we do because this is how we're supposed to do it. So we're going to check a box and we got it all covered. That's the biggest problem organizations are having when it comes to these types of attacks. The number one thing they need to understand is how does my business work? Who has access to the data? Where does the data sit? How do we verify identity? Who are my employees? What generational makeup are they? What could be the areas where they can be deceptive? What type of education do we need to give them? And what kind of support do we need to give them? A lot of organizations sometimes they don't create this one-to-one backwards talking points. For example, I tell companies and organizations, make sure that you know who your employees are. Have those human conversations, understand who they are, and make sure they know that if something goes on in the organization, they should come and talk to you and not make it look like that they don't understand. A lot of people, they don't come and ring the bell in the organization because they might be thought of as a person who just might not get it or is saying something dumb or stupid, or they'll looked at as somebody who isn't as educated as well, when in fact, they could be the key to stopping certain things. When you have the dialogue back and forth with the organization, they're your first line of defense. And that's what you need to think about your employees as your first line of defense when any of these attacks occur. If you see something, say something, hear something, say something. As you mentioned, we were wired as humans. Seeing is believing, hearing is believing. It came from this person. I trust this person. So you stop right there. How do you trust them? Why? Well, they sent me a video. And on the video, they were about to take off on a plane, and they didn't just want to do a text, but I saw a video of them saying, "Hey Gary, wire $10,000 over to the bank because I'm about to ABC." So the employee on the other side is saying, "Wow, okay, they actually took the time to make me the video. I know this to be true. Pull the trigger." Deepfakes today, it can be done. We've all seen it. It's pretty scary. Having a
Yep.
picture of somebody is pretty much enough to get it done. And finding their voice, we talk about voice privacy when we were talking about, was it multi-factor authentication, right? Something you have, something you know, before a thumbprint, a mother's maiden name, a voice. Unfortunately, those things aren't so good anymore. We can lift a thumbprint. There's ways to do that. A voice, we can manipulate a voice. A face, we can manipulate a face. We need to design systems that support this type of behavior. We have, as I mentioned also in the report, friction where it matters. Technology that verifies identities and learns behaviors, and tools that empower users to verify identity without overwhelming them. And that's another key. When you have multiple steps for your employees or users to do in order to be secure, stop for a moment. Think about their daily life. Everybody's multitasking. Everybody is moving so quickly. We all have multiple devices. We have our phones, we have our laptop, we have whatever's going on. People are multitasking. We saw this a lot, as you said, in the lockdown. It was wild, the wild west of everything. So
Yep.
now that you have somebody multitasking and they're saying, well, in order for us to verify your identity, we need you to do this, 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 and this. And then, by the way, you're going to wait 30 seconds and go around this way and enter your credentials here. So I'm the employee sitting there. Not me, I wouldn't do that. But anyway, you see an employee sitting there and they're like, forget this. I know how to hack this thing. I'm not doing any of it. I'm going to
Yeah,
go
this
around.
is it.
I can do this
Workarounds.
quicker, right? So
Mm.
that's, again, where I talk about digital transformation across organizations. You have the CISO or the CIO who's saying, wait a second, slow down, updated security, updated patching. Then you have the COO saying, hey, business as usual. We need to move quickly. We need to hit our marks. And if the organization is not incentivizing the leadership of the organizations to work together in order to create the greater good of organization, you're going to have massive problems. That goes the same within the smaller groups within the organization. Understand who your employees are, incentivize them to work side by side, incentivize them to say something, hear something, do something when they need to, and not worry. And if the incentivization is there, yes, at the beginning you might be overloaded with stuff, but trust me, that's your first line of defense.
Yeah, it's like you can't have productivity without security, and you can't have
Exactly.
security without productivity. It just has to work hand in hand.
And
Um,
unfortunately, companies are very siloed, and they don't
yeah.
do that. And that's something that needs to
Mm.
happen more widely.
Yeah.
Um, with all this in mind, Simon, sure, I think you've given us a lot good overview of this. What's your take, Simon, also on how businesses can adapt fraud prevention strategies to keep up with this environment we're talking about today?
Yeah. So I think you have to kind of, as Shira's been saying, you have to look at the whole thing, right? Um, we have to kind of treat identity now as being that very front line of defense, right? So the minute that someone logs in or logs on or creates an account, you have to make sure that you've got good defense at that point. That defense has to be multi-layered. Again, coming back to what I said earlier about fraud always looking for the weak point. Nothing is a silver bullet in this industry. Nothing. You need to make sure that you understand where the weaknesses could be with the defenses that you're putting in, and then make sure you've got something that overlaps and layers with that to try and block that weak point so that you end up with a more robust and complete field. So I see this quite a lot with, certainly in the EU, the latest compliance rules that have been brought in around identity capture and identity proofing. you're seeing, as an expert, I've said this to other people as well, but as an expert, you can go in there and read those compliance requirements, and you can envisage the scenarios that they've been created to prevent against. It's very, very clear. And this is how, they're not just there for a reason. Again, coming back to this idea of inconvenience, the compliance laws or the compliance requirements are in there because they're addressing a very real threat. And we have to approach everything like that. So I would say, to your point, fraud prevention comes down to building something robust that considers where the weaknesses are going to be, that has multi-layers to it, because no one item or one feature is going to protect you from everything. That's not how it works. And just really not cutting corners, treating it as with the importance that it requires, and not just looking for the quickest fix and not foregoing certain things for other issues. It has to be baked in from the ground up for it to work properly. If you bolt it on, it's going to fall off. If you bake it in, it's there from the outset.
Shira, I'm going to give you the last word in our talk today. Any other advice that you have for businesses and individuals out there looking to better fight this crazy fraud environment that we're in?
Yeah, certainly. So I think it's not only looking at what the attacks are today, but understanding where they're going. And not only the speed at their coming, because the speed is unbelievable, but it's going to be even much quicker as we go down the roads with the advancement of quantum and everything else that's coming down the pikes. But organization also must strengthen their defenses across every point of identity lifecycle and take that multi-layered approach to security. And one example I just want to give, and I give credit where credit is due. I heard this from General Gregory Tuhill. It was an excellent example when we were talking about zero trust. So if you think about the old world and when there were the castles and the moat, and in order to get into a castle, the drawbridge needs to come down. So when the drawbridge came down, people came in, full access to the castle. Now think about it this way. Here's your castle. Somebody's knock, knock. It's me. Here's my identity. Okay, come in. Drawbridge comes down. They come in. Now all the doors are locked. Anywhere where there's important elements, identity needs to be verified in a way where it's not just credentials, but across multi-layers of the organization as the organization operates and understands, in order to verify trust and truth of who someone is and how they are, in order to get that access that can be detrimental to the organization if it's in the wrong hands, but also could be detrimental if they don't get it. So we're always looking at it, we have to stop somebody, but then think of it from the other side. Businesses need to operate. They need people to be able to do things with very sensitive data. They need to be able to operate as business as usual. So think about all those knocks on the other doors. How do you verify it? Who is the person knocking? How do you make sure they are who they say they are? With the advancement of these attacks that are coming so fast, how do we slow it down in a way that we could really verify to the utmost 100% degree? And a lot of places saying, well, we're almost sure. And again, human factors, that one entree point, almost sure that water's coming in, just as Simon said. So we really need to take a step back, take an understanding of an organization as a whole. What do we need to do business as usual? What do we need to be secure? Now, where are the attacks going to come and where they are today? That is how they need to scale their organization in a secure way.
And thank you. And that makes a lot of sense. I think one thing I would point listeners to, we've mentioned a couple times some statistics from the Entrust identity fraud report. And I encourage you to go to entrust.com and click on the fraud report, download it, and you can get a little bit of a sense of where we've been seeing the water flowing over the past year and some of the data we're finding. I think you'll find it really interesting and useful as you think about this. And from there, I want to thank you, Simon. I especially want to thank you, Shira, for being here today. It's been a genuine pleasure to have you here and really enjoying the conversation. Wish we could just keep it going longer. This is a lot of fun. And with that, I want to thank everyone who's listening. Please do rate and review the podcast on your favorite podcast application, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen. And thank you for joining us, and we look forward to talking to you again in this space soon.